Don and Gino, Real Estate and Finance Show. Join us.
Consumers Furniture is inviting you to their pre-Labor Day tent sale. For Labor Day, we are offering 25% off your entire order. It's 25% off even on special orders. This is a true sale. We don't mark up merchandise to mark it down. Consumers Furniture has just received a truckload of mattresses at discount prices. Queen pillow top sets starting at $3.99. Come on down, you'll always find a deal at Consumers Furniture. We're located in the Center Point Parking Shopping Center below Sam's Club and Walmart.
Hey there, I'm Tori with your hometown station. Weather's sunny and warm today with a high of 96 degrees. Clear skies in the overnight with a low of 67. Tomorrow, highs in the mid-90s, then a little cooler on Sunday with highs in the upper 80s to low 90s. For anything and everything SCV, go to hometownstation.com. For all the latest news and information on the Santa Clarita Valley, you can find it on our social media. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at KHTS Radio.
And welcome to the Alex Urbina Radio Show. I'm your host, joined weekly in the KHTS studio with Ellen Tunick. Thanks for hanging out with me on this beautiful Friday afternoon. We're going to go through a series called Helping You Reach Your Full Potential, in case you're just joining us for the very first time. This is a radio show. We do live coaching. I'm a life coach, experienced a little bit over 20 plus years of coaching people into creating maximum value for themselves, finding the breakthroughs that they are looking for into the next level of all different types of parts of their life, from relationships to business, whatever it is that you're ready to take on next. My job is to get in the gap with you and try to figure out what's missing from you, what's required from you, what are some of the things that you get to look at, recognize, notice, overcome, and really have those breakthroughs for yourself. And joining us in a few minutes is one of my favorite gentlemen and one of the most amazing businessmen in the community here in Santa Clarita. In a few minutes, I'm going to introduce him. But before we do that, Ellen, I want to talk a little bit about teeing us up to have a powerful coaching session, and what does that look like? What I like to say is that in order to have breakthroughs, you really have to be coachable. And one of the things that I was thinking about yesterday as I was driving around town, going from coaching session to coaching session, I realized that there are some people that say they want different results. There are people that say they want to be coached or mentored, or they just, if they can have the right insight to get them to achieve whatever it is that they're yearning for. A lot of people aren't willing to change, and you can't want to change the results if you're unwilling to change yourself. Because from what I've noticed in my own personal growth is when I'm willing to discover and grow and change my thinking, my beliefs, the choices I make, where I'm choosing from, and really just dive into that realm of self-reflectiveness, then all of a sudden I'm able to see different things that are possible. Then I'm able to make different choices, thus creating different results. So in order to be coachable, I've narrowed it down to just a couple of bullets I want to talk about today. So to be coachable, you really have to be open-minded. That means that you have to be open to all possibilities. It doesn't mean that you have to agree with everything that the person that you're sitting with what they say. You just got to be open to that it is possible and that somebody might be creating those kinds of results, or they're able to see it that way. Even if you can't yet see it in the moment, you just got to be open to that it's possible. So be open-minded. The next thing is you got to be self-aware. You got to be willing to look at yourself, like look inward and stop focusing outward. But if you can start this practice of looking inward and self-reflecting on, why did I choose that? Where am I choosing from? And just look inward and start doing that reflective work and start questioning some of the things and some of the motives and some of the choices that you're making, and even where you're choosing from is also important. And then the last thing is be willing to surrender some of the old limiting beliefs that you have, even if you don't know you have them. You need to start discovering the possibility that you could have some old conditioning from your childhood or from maybe a religion that you were brought up in or raised in, or a community.
Anywhere.
It could just be instilled upon you depending on how you were raised and what kind of family home you were brought into. And so some of that old limiting belief, I like to call it old programming. And a lot of times you'll hear, sometimes when I work with my clients, I talk about updating your software, right? Going from LN 2.0 to LN 4.7 or whatever it is. And so I'm going to invite you to think of surrendering some of the old programming and being willing to embrace some new theories about what's possible for you when it comes to personal growth. With that being said, we have Dave Cantrell from American Family Funding. I don't know if we have the clap. I doubt we have the little clap noise, Yeah, exactly. There you go. You know how to make that, right?
I can fill in for it. I'm good.
But Dave's, he's an executive over at American Family Funding, and I work with Dave once every couple weeks. Yep. And we get in to these powerful coaching sessions where not only are you learning, but I'm learning, and we're growing together. And that's what I love about all of my coaching sessions, because I'm probably growing 3 times more than my client is. And if you've ever learned this,
a little farther along,
right? Yeah, if you've ever learned this, they say that the teacher actually learns the most when they're teaching. It's because as they're teaching, they're reminding themselves of what it is that they still get to learn. And whether I've talked about some of these distinctions for 200 times, if maybe it's the 201st or 202nd time I've heard myself say it, I just get that much more clear about having that breakthrough. So with that being said, I've invited you, Dave, to come in on the show. So thanks for taking that opportunity and for having the courage to come on and just open up and reveal.
No, it's my pleasure. Like I said, we've been talking every couple of weeks, and it should be interesting because when you were mentioning those 3 points, I pretty much suffer from all of them. So this should be good.
All right. Sounds good. So what's the starting point? Like, what area do you want to head down? Like, what do you want to focus on today?
So I think the thing that I would like to focus on most, you and I have a lot of conversations, and we've had a lot of conversations about me and my personal journey. But I would really like to kind of, take it maybe from the aspect of now me being, helping, leading a team, leading those. That's kind of one of the areas that I would like to maybe touch on is finding, how to coach other. Now that you've been coaching me, how do I coach others?
And I'm glad that you brought that up, because if you coach with me at a certain period of time, what actually happens is the next level is that you start coaching other people. Now, whether it happens consciously or unconsciously, it's just that as you start growing and developing, there's a certain way about you. There's a certain light. There's a certain energy where you attract other people. Where it's weird. They start like opening up and asking you questions, or they start turning to you, and then you start going, I think I might have a little insight on this. And then you start actually coaching other people. And as you're coaching other people, then you're having your next breakthrough the same way that I'm having breakthroughs by coaching others.
And as a businesswoman, because I own my own business as well, it's not so structured, actually, the way I see it.
Right.
Where I'm coming from is the more I practice my own transformation, enlightenment, whatever, I'm already seeing in very small amounts the flow over. And so you end up, by being and evolving and transforming, you're coaching without even realizing it.
That's right. And one of the things I love about when me and Dave get together and we sit in front of each other, we close the door, I look at it almost like two musicians that pull out our instruments and we have an old school jam session.
Right.
And we're just like, fine tuning our guitar or whatever our instrument is. And we're just like, I'm playing, he's playing. And before we know it, we're kind of throwing it back and forth until we come up with some added value of different perspectives that we didn't consider. So we really just sit down and we go, well, what about this? Or what if we can see it like that? Or could this be possible? And as we create that, we create a buffet of possibilities that we couldn't think of on our own. And then we go, I kind of like this one. So if I have the choice to choose any perspective, why can't I choose the more empowering one? And then the most important question is, why do I keep choosing the one that doesn't serve me the most?
Right.
That's the awareness.
Right.
And so I think a lot of times when I come in and I start, either opening up possibilities or even asking certain questions for you to come up with those possibilities, we always walk out with having some more clarity that there's other options other than the 1 or 2, 3 that we've been holding on to.
Right. Well, I think one of the things that I'd like to ask you, and I know it was even a little bit with me, because when we first started 2 or 3 years ago, I was like, I don't need coaching. I'm fine. I'm good.
We're good.
And then, after the first two, first kind of, I'm like, oh wow, I guess I do need some coaching. How do you
breakthrough?
How do you? Because you're right. You have the most important thing to me is you have to be coachable. How is it that you get people to be coachable? I mean, I know you can't just snap your fingers, but what kind of techniques do you use to kind of allow them to open up?
All right. So if I were to, it's a great question. If I go back to the very first time I met you, when I came in, I was more focused on relating with you. So it was more about the very first session was about creating a camaraderie, a connection, being playful. It was more about just kind of finding, our connection and our groove, and all of a sudden we just started clicking. Right? It was almost like we're playful. It wasn't too serious, and it was just like two old chaps just sitting down and we're just chatting about whatever you wanted to talk about.
Right.
But if you noticed, as we were having those discussions, what I was doing was every time we would talk about something, whatever you wanted to talk about, I would kind of throw like a spin on it, and I would toss it back to you like a seed.
Right.
And I don't know if you were noticing that consciously or not, but every time we would talk, I would throw a seed. So I'd throw a left seed, a right seed, a left seed, a right seed. So after our first session, I had probably dumped about 6 or 7 or 12 different seeds in your lap. And then you went home and the coaching didn't stop.
Right.
The coaching continued because I planted those seeds. So the next 3 or 4 days, they started to cultivate.
Right.
That's why when our second session, when we sat down and I said, all right, let's talk a little bit about from what happened between the last time we met. You started off with something like, well, last time we talked, I was really thinking about what you said. And
right.
so I knew that those seeds were sprouting.
Right.
So as a coach, because you can't make or force people to think a certain way, you have to surrender being in resistance to trying to make people think the way you want them to, or the angle that you see, or the result that you can see and they can't. You can't muscle people to have those breakthroughs. So what it does is it forces you to rely on all the different techniques that you can create for yourself, and that's to open up these possibilities. So what I was doing was opening up possibilities, and I call them throwing seeds at you.
Right.
So now that I kind of painted the picture from the back end of what was going on behind the scenes with me, what was it like on your end as you were either collecting those seeds and carrying them home with you and then cultivating them?
Yeah, I mean, looking back, I definitely remember one of the reasons why I became open to this was exactly that when you first came in, it was just conversation. And when I tell people that they should talk to you, I tell them, he doesn't come in and preach. He doesn't come in. He just comes in and says, what's going on? And we had that really open, good first couple of times there were definitely a lot of conversations on around, just like I said, just really getting to know each other. But now looking back on it, I definitely see how you were planning things here and there that I took home with me. Because I even know that there were a couple things that I talked to my kids about that were directly from conversations that you and I had. And it was, really opening myself up and realizing that it's okay, that there is support around, and asking my kids at the time were 17 and 18, and asking them for support was really it opened me up, but it also gave them the strength to say, hey, Dad's asking me for something, and it kind of helped them grow too.
I remember that. I remember asking you.
That's really powerful.
I remember asking you
with your
specifically.
kids.
I said, have you ever asked your son or daughter to help you? And the look you gave me was like,
disbelief.
Yeah, I was like,
you went, huh?
I'm the dad. You don't ask the kids for help.
Yeah.
But
and I remember that look you gave me, and you just kind of hesitated and you go, no, I guess I'd never have. And then I opened up a new possibility, which was, have you ever considered what it would be like to have a father that's always been there for you and then turns around and goes, hey, son, what do you think?
Yeah.
I mean, what a gift you can give. And so just opening up that possibility for you, I saw your eyes light up and you went, yeah, I guess that could be a gift. And then you saw the value of it, and then tuck it, put it on the shelf, and when you went home, when you saw the opening, you implemented
Yeah.
it, got a result, got some great feedback, had the breakthrough, and then were willing to come back and share that with me. And that's kind of the exercising the muscle. That's what it looks like in a coaching relationship.
Yeah, it's the look that I gave you was the same look my kids gave me when I asked for them. Like, what? So, but yeah, and I think it's over time, right? I mean, things come out over time because I still, things that we talked about 2 years ago, sometimes I still pull out of the toolbox, and it's not, you can't implement everything on that first meeting.
Right,
you just
right.
have to, but you have to know it's there and have those conversations and really, like I said, it's being open to being coachable is really the key. And that's why, like I said, I look at the people that I'm around and my biggest concern is helping them be coachable. Right. And understanding that it's a give and take, that it's not me coaching them as much as it's us working together. Right, to get to the result that we want.
Yeah, and if you think about a coaching session, if you're being a great student, which you are, then you're learning how to be a great teacher.
Right.
So if you're really watching who I'm being, because I attribute 98% of my success of having people have breakthroughs is not about what I say or anything that comes out of my mouth. It's more about who I'm being. Mm-hmm. So when I come into a room, I'm really focused on being loving and patient, non-judgmental. I'm really focusing on all those inner qualities that you need from me to feel safe enough to open up and share. And then when I'm able to get you to open up and feel safe and you're sharing like that, then I just let, the commitment that we both have to having breakthroughs just kind of take over.
It's this amazing, what you have brought to me was this amazing space of safe energy.
Absolutely.
And when we arrive and show up in that spirit, and we provide that safe energy for the people around us, it always leads to wonderful things. I have found, and I'm trying not to have like an agenda in my head. It's like, I'm going to show up. This is the person I want to be, and let's see what happens.
That's right.
And a little bit of a control freak, so working real hard on that. And right now, this is what I'm working on: is there is no agenda. I don't need to say, if I do this, I want this to be the accomplishment at the end. It's almost like I'm kind of excited, if I show up that way, to see what happens.
Absolutely. And here's another thing is, when I'm sitting with all my clients, I'm also sitting from the space of that you have all your own answers. So that frees me up to be able to be playful,
right,
and kind of walk alongside of you with whatever you're dealing with. So it's not so rigid. So it's really playful because I already know and believe and know that you have all your own answers in there. I just got to figure out how to ask the right question for you to go,
right,
oh, shoot, no one's ever asked me that before. And then I go, yes, then I'm on the right path.
Right.
Because if you think about it, if we asked ourselves the right questions, we can come to our own conclusions and find our own answers. Mm-hmm. The problem is that we don't walk around going, all right, Alex, what do you think about this? We just don't do that.
Right.
We go into our head to either now want to beat ourselves up because we don't have the right answers. We got all the psychological games that are getting in the way of us being self-reflective, coming non-judgmental, and just allowing ourselves to be self-reflective and self-aware at a deeper level. So for me, I'm coming in and I'm already got a smile on my face because I already know you have all the right answers within you. I just got to figure out how to get you to tap into those.
Right.
And sometimes I get to be the guy who challenges you too, because we've had a lot of challenges as well.
Oh yes, well, yes we have, and I will tell you that there are many times when I'm like, yeah, I guess so. I guess so.
But there's a lot of times you go home probably and you tell your wife, like, that guy is crazy. He's telling me that I should forgive the one guy who ripped me off for $10 million. Like, right. I ain't forgiving nobody, right?
Right, yes. We've definitely had that kind of conversation. And trust me, after a couple of years, when I've tried coaching my wife, she's definitely said, "Don't try that Alex stuff on me." Okay, don't try that Alex stuff on me.
I've heard it in different ways. I've heard of don't use your Jedi mind tricks on me and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm just here with the intention to help us arrive to some kind of a solution.
The more I focus on me and being the person that I want to be, it's just amazing how my husband, my kids, whatever, they move forward instead of pulling back. And that's, I want to share everything that I've learned. But I don't anymore. I actually have to sit with myself like this and do a lot of yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. That's really hard for me.
Because you've spent a lifetime of seeing the angles and seeing the right answer, and you're almost like, buddy, it's right there. And so then you want to tell people where the answer is instead of going, you're really cold right now.
Yeah.
Okay, now you're warm. Okay, now you're warm. Okay, now you're getting hotter. So the trick is to not give people the answer, but to help them, give them clues to help them lead them down that road. And then just as they get right before it, then you play dumb like, and they go, oh my God, here it is. And you're like, oh my God, you're so amazing. And women know how to do this the best, right?
Right.
Like if a guy's driving around and lost, the woman will give like little hints, and then he goes, oh my God, I figured it out.
Yeah,
it's like, sure you did. Yeah, that's the best way to build people up, to help them discover their own greatness. And it's a great model for parenting. It's the inspirational parent that opens up these possibilities, plants these seeds, and lets their kids come up with their own conclusions, find their own answers, and then they self-realize, oh my God, I can do it. I am competent. I am powerful. So that's how you build people up. So I'm going to toss it back to you. Based on what we're talking about, what's the takeaway on how to build people up in your office on teams, especially the teams that you're committed to creating results on?
I think that my two biggest takeaways would be, number one, really work on developing a relationship with somebody rather than trying to coach them right off the bat.
Okay.
Right. I got to get to know people. I got to find out what works for them and how they. It's kind of like coach how they want to be coached. Right. I got to find that out. And then the other thing is also. Because I'm very much like, I want to give you the answer, but you got to realize it's so much more impactful when they discover the answer. And so leading them down that road and letting them realize it on their own will be much more impactful for them and for the team.
And if you think about it, it's really a different mindset. It's a different model of leadership.
Yes.
Because there are those leaders out there that like to be the... come to me and I'll tell you exactly what to do or how to handle this. And then you have the empowering ones that are like, come to me and we'll figure it out together.
It's like, go get the dictionary. I'm not going to tell you.
There you go.
Right, yeah.
There you go.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you tell your kids to go get the dictionary, or do you just go? I'll tell you
something,
exactly
they
what to
all
do.
have phones.
They Google it. They just Google it.
There you go. Go to Google.
I no longer need it.
I don't even think kids know what a dictionary is anymore. We got to take a short break, but when we get back, we're going to take it to a whole nother level on the one-on-one coaching with Dave. Stay tuned for more right here on the Alex Urbina Radio Show on your hometown station, KHTS.
Santa Clarita, bedbugs are taking over our city. They've invaded our homes, our businesses, and most importantly, our sleep. If you have suspicious bites that appear nightly, or have a bug that you need ID'd, your best option is to make one call to All Pro. We offer a 100% guarantee that your bedbug issues will be solved with heat in one treatment. No need to tent or spray your house with chemicals. Heat is all you need. Call 661-298-2200 or text me a bug picture to 661-645-0540. It's time to sleep tight again, SCV.
What's the perfect way to end the weekend? Sunday brunch at Salt Creek Grill, of course. Wind down with delectable dishes off Salt Creek's award-winning menu and enjoy a glass of champagne, because after all, you deserve it. Make Sunday brunch at Salt Creek Grill a new tradition with your family and friends. Salt Creek Grill in Valencia on Town Center Drive in front of the movie theater. For reservations, 222-9999 or go online to saltcreekgrill.com.
Hometown station. KHTS AM 1220 and the new 98.1 FM.
And welcome back to the Alex Urbina Radio Show. I'm your host, Alex Urbina. I'm an advanced life coach specialist. I'm hanging out with this beautiful lady, Ellen Tunick, and my good friend over here, Dave Control with American Family Funding. And we're having a pretty powerful discussion. I'm already learning some things, again, for whether it's the 10th time or the 20th time, but just getting more clarity on what works, and what doesn't work. And so for me, when we're talking about coaching people, and it reminds me that my job is to help build people up, help remind people that they have their own answers, and that the best way to do that is to point things out along the road that they can't yet see until they start seeing them, and then they develop almost like this new behavioral pattern of discovering things on their own, and then before you know it, they're on their own path. Eventually, we're going to get to a point where you're going to be able to self-coach your own self, and then it's going to be, we cut the coaching sessions and we dial them back, and then it's maybe just a monthly get-together and just brainstorm or just get some clarity, or
there's always something new to learn.
It is.
Always.
It is. But I want to, my job is not to have people, coaching them forever. My job is to empower people to be their own leaders so that they can be coaching themselves and other people.
Right. And checking
it was it was a very long time ago, in my early 20s, when I decided that I wanted to build leaders. I didn't want to build followers. And that's probably why I don't have a big following, because I really, from the deepest part of my heart, I want to empower people to lead themselves. Otherwise, I would have started maybe a church and had millions of followers following, but that's not what I want. I want to empower people to think for themselves so they can go out and
move on.
And not only that, but they can empower other people to think for themselves so that we can cause a new shift in humanity and cause a conscious shift and an awakening and then now teaching our kids how to think for themselves. That's what really gets me excited.
Absolutely.
Right.
So what's the next question, or did that branch off a whole nother set of questions?
If you want to talk about kids, I mean, because I know you have these great workshops for teens and things like that. What's the? There's got to be a difference between coaching kids and coaching adults.
Is that a question?
Yes.
There isn't.
I don't think there is either.
No?
No, because both of you guys are two little kids.
I'm pretty old to be a little kid.
You are old, but there's a kid inside you that comes out, and I've seen him, and he's amazing. And when we get together, both of our kids come out, and we just play, and that's where we're creative.
Okay.
And your power is in your creativity. Where you get stuck is when you get to the I'm Dave the manager, I'm Dave the it's the ego stuff that gets in our way.
Okay.
But the juice is that little creative kid that when you come out and play, when that guy lights up, everyone wants to be around you. That's where you're powerful. That's when you're influential. That's when people trust you. That's when people want to do business with you. It's going back to the authentic self. Mm-hmm. It's you figuring out who's the authentic me, and I'm just going to be that guy. Instead of trying to be someone specific at this meeting or this function, you don't have to try to be anyone specific. Just be the fun-loving Dave that we all know is there and we see from time to time. Be him more, and you're going to be playful and free and powerful.
Authenticity is authenticity. It doesn't matter whether you're 10, 50, or 70.
Yeah.
Authenticity is authenticity.
Yeah.
And the only difference is you're authentic to you, and you're special and you're different.
Yeah, so I want to paint this picture for you, Ellen. At a certain age, let's say it was 6 or 9 or 12, you decided that you needed to be someone specific for the world or to people. And you created this persona.
Yes.
Or this fictitious character, and you've been playing that character and you've been playing that role for such a long time that you don't know and you don't remember who's that little girl that was just me at one point.
Yes.
And so finding your authentic self is shutting down all the gameplay and the racket and the ego games. You got to shut all that mechanical machine down and shave that armor off so that you can go back to finding that little girl again.
Yeah, that's.
And when you reclaim her, that's where your power is at.
Yeah.
And you know it intuitively, like as I'm saying
I do.
There's
I'm
something
shaking my head, going, I hear you. But again, there's the MO. What I've grooved all these years is what I call the imposter. And the imposter has allowed me to be, successful and run my own business and manage people. But I'm not really sure that that's who I am.
Well, it's who you've decided to become.
Yes.
But what would it look like if you can go back and reclaim who you really are? And that's finding and discovering the authentic self.
Yes, and that's an exciting journey, and I'm not afraid of it anymore.
Awesome.
I was super scared and super afraid. I knew that it would be a long journey. There would be bumps. I'd cry a lot, but I'm really excited about getting there.
I'm excited for you.
Whoopee!
So I do want to ask a question. So you mentioned a couple of times about how when you're coaching, you try and be playful. Is that because you're trying to get the other person to get to that kid that's in them and allow that authenticity to come out?
Yes and no. I'm being that because that's like when I get together with people, I want to play. That's just my little kid wants to play.
Right.
So I'm trusting that if I let my kid out, you'll somehow recognize that you have your own little kid and you'll trust that energy, and then you'll let your kid out. Mm-hmm. Now that process sometimes takes a little while, but I know for you and me, we kind of clicked right off the bat. It was like, we started, if you remember, we walked in and it was like, oh, you like Star Wars? And we were talking about Star Wars, and we jumped all over the place. But it literally, if you put a camera in the room, it was like you could swear there were 2 4-year-olds that just got together and goes, oh, you got crayons?
Right.
Here are my crayons, and here's my baseball cards. And that's really what it started off.
You're starting that relationship.
Right. Yeah, we started connecting, and we started trusting each other, and we started bonding. And then the next time, we just started talking, and we started increasing the conversation about some things that were really important and things that really mattered to us, like family. Then we started talking about family and what's really important. And then it got a little deeper into like some of the prices I pay and the struggles. And before you know it, we just got into real talk, and it was powerful right off the bat.
Right.
But if you realize and recognize in the beginning, it was just playful. It was just 2 little kids coming in and recognizing our counterpart. And we just started, playing.
So if we finally get to that place where...
When you finally get there?
When I finally get to that place where I am authentic, then the way I open up to people doesn't have to look like yours. It just has to look like mine.
That's right. Yeah, it doesn't look like anything specific. I'm just sharing.
Even though we look at you and we say, well, that works.
Right.
Right?
But it doesn't actually work for everybody, in case you haven't known that.
Yeah.
Because there's some people that, either whatever experience they're getting from me is either, too much, or, I've heard some people say he's too spiritual, he's this, or he's that. Your judgments come out.
Right.
So there's only certain people that are drawn to me because they're excited about that little kid, or that authenticity, or that playfulness, or there's some kind of energy that I'm drawing certain people that are ready for it. Some people are not. And it's just part of the process. So if you notice, a little bit of time, I happen to be attracting people that are ready for their next level of growth. They just don't know it yet. And then the way it shows up is they start popping in, they start checking in on what are you doing, and what are you going. Before you know, they're asking questions, or they show up to a training, or they show up. So it's a process of, people recognizing that they too might have that light inside of them, and that comes from me practicing to discover my own light and just being willing to have the courage to just shine it. Mm-hmm. So when you asked that question about kids, I don't know if I specifically answered that question for you.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the fact that there's really no difference ultimately when it comes, and now that I'm looking at it, because I'm thinking that, well, little kids you got to be a little bit more careful with, but then you got to be careful with everybody, right? I mean, so I see that there really isn't a big difference.
I don't understand the word careful.
Well, I hear it's funny because when you said it, I heard caring.
Okay.
Even though you said careful, I hear it as caring. So I'm caring with everybody. Careful is more like I'm operating out of fear, like I'm afraid that, so I need to be careful, rather than I'm caring and I trust that caring is enough. Mm-hmm. But when I'm caring and loving, and just so you know, most of the work I do with teens is in a training room. And if you've ever been in my training room, my whole intention is to create this safe, loving space where you're not being judged. And it's more like I put more emphasis on creating that space and that context like a gym. It's like an emotional, mental, spiritual gym for you to get in there and just get some work done. And before you realize it, you're on that machine. You're working it, boy. And before you know it, you're going, man, I never realized I had these muscles. Like where, and for and like you said earlier, you feel exhausted, but it's like a refreshing exhausting.
Yes.
You just feel
it's a very peaceful.
It's like when you cry, when you have this long cry.
You go.
There's different kinds of cries. Do you agree?
Oh, yeah.
I totally
absolutely.
agree.
Yeah, there's
Totally
like
agree.
these loving, like healing cries. They're like, ooh, I needed that.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's some like, I didn't need that one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and sometimes we don't cry enough
Yeah.
And why don't we?
because we're not being authentic to ourselves. We're not feeling. We're not being reflective. I mean, there's so many things that we're holding back.
What could we be telling ourselves about our feelings that stops us from feeling our feelings? Like, if you're in a teen training in one of mine and you got 35, 40 kids there, and someone shares something very emotional and they're breaking down, and you got a room full of 40 kids, and all those kids go right to their head, and none of them give themselves permission to feel their feelings. What belief or conversation do you think they've created about feelings that would have them not be okay to feel that right there in the moment?
They don't want to show their weakness.
So they've created a belief that showing emotions is a sign of weakness. Vulnerability is a sign of weakness. Now, if you have a belief
Or
that's,
they'll be judged.
or if I finally share that experience, people are going to think less of me, or they're going to think that I'm weak. Right? These are the self-limiting beliefs that we've created around feelings, and then we wonder why we can't be vulnerable with the people we say we love the most. This is the true contradiction that's going on in the human psyche, and no one's explaining it to us. No one's pointing out that you have these limiting beliefs that are transparent, that's getting in the way of you being totally vulnerable with the people that you say you love the most. And that's why in the training room, people are, for the very first time in maybe 10, 12, 30, 50 years, they realize how vulnerable they can actually be because they've never been it like that
It's
before.
frightening. It can
before.
be frightening.
Well, it reminds me of that. What you're talking about reminds me of what you say to me all the time, that I'm creating stories, right? You're creating stories that if I say this person is going to judge me or look at me a different way. When more times than not, when I've been open enough to share something, even with my wife, because she's like, oh, me too. And it's amazing how that then makes you feel better, because you feel, number one, not alone.
It's bonding.
And number two, you're like, oh my God, we're on the same place, so now we can work on this together rather than trying to feel like I'm by myself and I have to do this by myself.
Yeah. And stories is just another way of saying limiting beliefs, or you can call them narratives. It's a certain sentence or paragraph that you've created, and then you attach that onto something like relationships. We can have a story or a belief or a narrative that says, the last time I opened myself up and trusted someone, I got hurt. So imagine you carrying that story around with you under your arm into every relationship. How vulnerable are you going to be? What are the possibilities that you're ever going to bring your walls down and let someone in again?
Very close
small.
to
It's
zero.
Very small.
Yeah, you're not setting yourself up to win. But if you have those limiting beliefs and don't know you have them, how detrimental is it for you to go a whole lifetime having 3 or 4 divorces, finally settling for a dog at the last 10 or 20 years of your life to have a relationship with, and you just given up on relationships? Imagine if you were in your 15s or 16s and you got a glimpse of, oh my God, I have that limiting belief. Now that I'm aware of it, let me start working on that so that I can
So I can live.
So I can get rid of
Right.
it and create more empowering beliefs like, hey, in a relationship, being hurt is part of the process. Or when you trust people, there's a possibility that you can get hurt from them. So what you're doing is you're creating these different beliefs that are preparing you for what's par for the course. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like, let's say you go your whole life wanting to be in a relationship but never wanting to get hurt. That's like that's, no.
It's like an oxymoron.
That's
Right,
what
right.
it's exactly what it is. So that's what I'm trying to say is, but what if someone taught you that, hey, if you're going to be in a relationship, you're going to get hurt.
And it's okay.
Yes.
Yes.
And now you go, now it's a whole different ball game. And if I can accept that if I'm going to be in relationships, it's going to be painful, and I'm willing to pay the price of getting hurt because I want to share my life with someone, and the joys of that is so profound, I'm in. I'm signing up, but I'm doing it from a conscious commitment.
Right.
Right.
Rather than going in with the expectations that I'll go in, but I don't want to be hurt.
Yeah.
It's and a lot of times I'll make up not stories, but an example, like it's kind of like you saying, I want to practice swimming, but I just don't want to get in the water.
Right.
Or I love dogs so much, but I love pit bulls, or I love attack. I don't want to say pit bulls because I've had people email me that pit bulls are loving dogs, and I believe they are, and I believe that. But let's say alligators.
Oh, okay.
You're an alligator wrangler, but you expect to never be bit, right?
Yeah.
Or law enforcement officer, and not expect that there's danger
Right.
right around the corner waiting for you. So, in relationships, if you are taught that there's a possibility, and there are times that it's painful to be in relationships. But if you prepare yourself to be hurt and to learn how to create a new relationship with the pain, learn how to accept it, embrace it, create a new story around it, you can create some extraordinary relationships from that platform.
Right. I agree 100%. Yeah.
Well, and you're in a relationship with everything and everyone.
That's right.
And you taught me that.
And what's the purpose of relationships? Do you remember?
The purpose of the relationship is to find out who you are.
That's right. It's to know to know yourself. Because you can't know yourself in a vacuum. Right?
It's of course, but never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
Once again, just opened up. Well, what about this?
Yeah.
And it was like, wow.
And a lot of us, when we're unconscious, we get into relationships because we're looking for our counterpart. We're looking for somebody to complete me. Like, it's like a trade-off. I got these goods, you got those goods, then we make a great pair. Let's bring it together. And that's okay, because when we're unconscious, we just don't know any better. So most of us start off like that, including myself. I didn't realize that I was unaware and unconscious in my relationship until I started having my own awakenings, and then started realizing and studying what relationships are all about. Then when I learned that healthy relationships are two whole and complete individuals, not in need of what the other person has. So now we're freed up to give to the relationship, rather than I'm in the relationship to get from it. Because if you got two needy people in a relationship that are taking something out of it, at a certain point, that bank account gets depleted.
Right.
And then
you overdraw.
And then you overdraw, and you got penalties you got to pay the price, and that's not necessarily good. All right, we got to take another break. When we get back, we're going to probably wrap up the show. Stay tuned for more of the Alex Urbina radio show right here in your hometown station, KHTS.
Sweet, salty, tastiest, bacon and pancakiest. Big yawns are okay, yummy syrups, yes way. Butter pecan, blueberry, old-fashioned strawberry. Never empty coffee pot, Mom says it hits the spot. Almonds are the fluffiest, Dad's hugs the scruffiest. Scrambled eggy, pepper shaky, orange juicy, wide awake. Stuffed French toastiest, waffles with the mustiest. Buttermilky, smooth, silky, tastes great. Love on a plate.
IHOP, everything you love about breakfast. Something big is coming to Castaic.
Is it a dinosaur, Bob?
No, Blanche.
Is it the 2020 Olympics?
No.
I know. We're finally hosting the World Cup.
No, silly. They're building Castaic High.
Bob, no way.
Go visit CastaicHighProject.com. You'll get all the latest details.
What's that web address again, Bob?
CastaicHighProject.com.
Again?
CastaicHighProject.com.
Bigger than a dinosaur?
That's right. CastaicHighProject.com.
All-Star Sports Grills is the best place in town to catch a Dodger game on one of their 17 screens and choose a cold one from 23 different tap beers. All-Star Sports Grills prides itself on their fresh, made-to-order menu, including half-pound Angus burgers. Enjoy an all-star comedy show the fourth Wednesday of the month. All Star Sports has a pet-friendly and smoking patio. All Star Sports Grills on Bouquet Canyon north of Plum Canyon.
You're going places, and College of the Canyons can get you there. Didn't get into the school you applied to. Or maybe it's too expensive. Why not start at College of the Canyons, where it's only $46 per unit? COC also offers financial aid, classes that use free textbooks, and a promise program that allows qualifying full-time, first-time students to go to COC tuition-free their first year. Visit canyons.edu now. That's canyons.edu.
KHTS.
Now FM, 98.1 FM, and AM 1220, your hometown station.
And welcome back to the Alex Urbina Radio Show. Hanging out with Dave Cantrell from American Family Funding. And you know what? Before we wrap the show up, or I miss this opportunity, I just want to tell you how in awe I am of your willingness to be open and to really look at yourself and to reflect and look at the things that might be challenging for most human beings. Because I know that from my own personal journey of starting off in personal development, that first glance is a very challenging glance. Mm-hmm. And it takes the heart of a champion to go, ooh, that stings. I want some more. And so I'm always, every time I sit with you, I'm always inspired by your willingness to go there and to want to go there every week. And it says a lot about your character and your leadership. Like, your leadership is just developing tremendously, and I'm in awe of you, and I just wanted to take that moment to acknowledge you.
Well, thank you very much. I do appreciate that, and yeah, I'll tell you, it is challenging and it is hard, and sometimes it can sting a little bit, but you're not going to move forward. It's kind of like you just said. Relationships have pain in it, and sometimes, but that doesn't have to be horrible.
Yeah,
it's just
feedback stings too, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sure does, and that which is my next question.
Okay,
there's everybody you want a very important part of coaching is feedback.
Yes,
right? That's a huge part of coaching is feedback. But how do you give feedback without coming off as judgmental? Right, because if you're judgmental, people are going to turn off immediately. But how do you do it in a way that is inspiring and uplifting, but yet still pointing out something that they need to work on?
So there's a couple of things that come to mind. First, you have to understand the distinction of feedback versus being judgmental. And what distinguishes the difference between both of them is your come from.
Okay.
If I'm hurt and I'm trying to hurt you back, I'm going to give you feedback with little zingers in them, and they're going to sound like I'm being judgmental towards you. If I'm neutral and loving and I want you to win and my come from is coming from that place, then I'm giving you feedback. It's more like insight, or it's information, or it's things that I can see that maybe possibly you can't see. So it's more about the come from. So you have to explain that to people. When they sit down, if you're a manager, a leader, a group supervisor, whatever it is, you got to sit down and explain to people, or your team. You might even have a discussion of what feedback is and explain the distinction. Mm-hmm. When we're giving you feedback, or if I'm giving you feedback, I'm giving it to you from a place of, I want you to win. I want you to win probably more than you want to win. So this is the feedback I'm giving you. And then you got to explain that when I'm giving you the feedback, you got to change some words. So here's some powerful words that you can use. Let's talk about the areas of improvement. I don't know if you ever heard me. Sometimes I'll say areas of improvement, or let's jump into the gap. Have you ever heard me say the gap?
Yes.
So the gap is that there's things that I know, and there's things that I don't know, and there's things that I don't know that I don't know. I know that sounds weird, but think about it. Write it down, and that'll be your homework.
Yeah. With the right punctuation.
Yeah, the things that I don't know, that's the stuff inside the gap. Let's go and explore that.
Oh, I get it. Okay.
Let's go explore that gap, or the areas of improvement. And then you have to be willing to tell on yourself and go, look, I even have a gap. I even have the areas of improvement. There are still things that I still need feedback on. Mm-hmm. Once you kind of set the context, you got to set the table, put the forks out, put the nice crystalware. And once you set the table, people are like, all right, I'm ready to eat. Bring that feedback on.
You bring off, it's not a bunch of you messages.
Yes. You got to set the table. set the context.
Well, you always say tee it up.
Tee it up.
Don't
Perfect.
You love that?
Yeah.
Tee it up.
One of my favorites.
Yeah, so prepare them for what they're going to hear.
Right.
And before that, you just start going into, all right, buddy, let me just give you feedback. Man, when you said that, you just cleared the room. Before you know it, they're like, I'm bad,
Right.
I'm bad and wrong, and
Right.
I can never do anything right. And now you disapprove of me, and now you're, and so then they go into all their limiting beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
You're validating all their limiting beliefs. But if you start off with explaining what feedback is, and then a lot of times when I give feedback, I always start off with positive stuff.
Right.
So I go right into, let's talk about what you did right, because, man, you killed it. These are things that you just hit, and you right on it. Before you know it, they're lit, right?
Right.
You high-five them, you seal it with the high-five, and then you go, let me know when you're ready to talk about now the areas of improvement, because now, for you at a 9, how do we get to a 10?
Right.
And then they go, let's talk about them now. After I've just acknowledged you and went down the bullet points, all things you did amazing, you're probably ready to hear some feedback from that place,
Right.
right?
You're still right.
Now you can handle it.
Right.
Now I'll go, all right, so the things that I noticed was, and then I'll say, oh, you probably want to write this down, right? Open your notebook, make it be official. And then the things that I noticed were these. The things I noticed were this, or things that I noticed. So notice the words I'm using, the things that I noticed.
Right.
The things that I noticed, does that sound neutral?
Yeah.
The things that I observed.
Right.
The things that seem like you can grow from. It's more neutral rather than you should have done this or I probably wouldn't have done that. Words are important, so the way that you deliver it also is important too. So when you're delivering something with gentleness, with care, you actually end up starting to be mindful of the words that you're using. Have you ever noticed that sometimes when I'm giving you guys feedback, it's gentle.
Yes.
It's not like it doesn't have a hint like, hey, what's wrong with you? Why did you choose that? It's just more of a
no sharp edges.
It's more of a matter of fact. Like, hey, have you considered this? A lot of times I say that.
You say that with me all
Yeah.
the
Have
time.
you ever considered this possibility? Have you considered that you could have gotten in there and just like made eye contact and shaken your hands in the room with everyone, and then when you got up in front of the room, everyone would have been all eyes on you because you created a connection with everyone first, a personal connection.
Right.
Have you ever considered this? So that's a softer way of landing some information that might be valuable for someone to see it as positive feedback for themselves.
Right.
I want to thank you guys so much for being here. It's always
my pleasure.
It's always my honor and pleasure because I also grabbed some golden nuggets for myself. So I'm a better human being because you guys took the time to come and chat and do a little jam session.
And I'd like to say to everybody out there, this guy's great. You really need to talk to him. It's a conversation, and it will be fantastic. So if you have something you want to talk about, give the guy a call. He's great.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. That's all the time we have. The good news is we're live here every Friday at noon. You're not going to be here next weekend.
Nope. I'm on my way to see my grandson.
Enjoy that.
Thank you.
Follow me on Facebook or Instagram. Thanks for joining us on the Alex Urbina Radio Show right here in your hometown station, KHTS.